Hello and greetings and welcome back, everybody. This is another episode of Travel Without a Cause, and I am Matt, and I'm standing right in front of the Maison du Champ in downtown beautiful historic St. Martinville, Louisiana. This is not the topic of our vlog today, but I thought I'd start it here because it's just such a beautiful structure that I'd show you real quick on our way to what we're going to be talking about today, which is the Evangeline Oak, which is right off of Main Street in St. Martinville. So without further ado, here we go. I'm going to walk you around and make a few stops along the way and just show you how beautiful this area is. Yeah, this is Main Street, St. Martinville, Louisiana. I know it's kind of loud at the moment, but I'll try to speak up as best I can without yelling at you guys. And this is the Maison du Champ. Again, this is not the focus of our vlog at all today, but it's too good to pass up. This placard right here says United States Post Office, formerly the home of Eugene Duchamp de Chastagne. That's the best I'm going to get that. Built in 1876 by David Sandoz, architect. Purchased and restored during the administration of Franklin D. Roosevelt, President of the United States of America, Henry Morgenthau Jr., Secretary of the Treasury, and these other people. 1939. This property was acquired from the federal government for historic monument purposes and is available to the general public. Oceanside Independent Order of Odd Fellows Lodge number 346, 1924. Look at this place, man. Beautiful. Let's start walking. So today, we're going to be talking about the Evangeline Oak, which is kind of based on folklore. And some people think it's a true story, or believe it's a true story over the years. But regardless, it's definitely a tale of romanticism and all that stuff. And you can see over there, you can vaguely see that church right there. I'm going to show you guys that on the way back. And I'll tell you a little short story of significance of that place, to me at least. And there's the old Main Street. Not much has changed here in the last 70, 80 years. So, there's an old oak tree here that we're walking towards here in a minute. That's the center of the story. And the tree, the live oak, is apparently right around 500 years old, which is around the same age as the live oak tree at St. John Cathedral that I showed you guys earlier in the week. Here's a side view of Maison du Champ. Very nice indeed. And it has to do with the tree, the live oak story, or the tree that the story is centered around, has to do with a little bit of the exile of the Acadians out of Acadie, or what is now called Nova Scotia. And a little short backstory of that. Back in the 1750s, I think 1755 was the year of the exile, the mass exile of the Acadians out of Nova Scotia by the British. Speaking of the British, I watched King Charles do his ceremony this morning and make his statements and all that. Sad to hear about the Queen, but now we have a king there, so we'll see how that goes. And so anyway, the word Cajun comes from the word Acadian, and so the name, which was, I guess, kind of bastardized and shortened and abbreviated and through different accents and all that over the years, the word Acadian kind of got blurred into the word Cajun, like Acadian, Acadians, and Cajun. You can see how over the years it kind of became that, and that's where the word Cajuns came from, because a lot of those exiles, a lot of those Acadians out of Nova Scotia that were exiled, lots of them perished throughout the process along the way after the exile, and they had to go back to France and all that stuff, and a lot of them died, and many of them ended up down here. And this is why this is called the Acadiana region, where all the Cajuns are. So just thought I'd give you a brief history on that and the explanation of all that for those of you who aren't familiar with the culture here. But so the story of Evangeline comes from, and it wouldn't be as popular, it wouldn't be as well known if it wasn't for a certain New Englander named Henry Wadsworth Longfellow from New England. And around the 1840s, I guess 1845, he was at a dinner party and overheard the tale of an old French woman, not an old French woman, a French woman that was separated from her husband on their wedding day. Look at this place. And the reason they were apparently separated on their wedding day is because of the tragic events, or during the tragic events after the expulsion of the Acadians out of Nova Scotia, or Acadie at the time. Beautiful piece of property here, huh? There's some oak trees right there. That's a big one back there. Wonder how old that one is. And so the tragic turn of events there, I mean, you lose your husband on your wedding day because he has to boot out of town because of all this exiling going on. So Longfellow wrote the poem, which was called Evangeline, a Tale of Acadie, in which that poem was published in 1847. As in, not 1947, 1847. Don't know if I said that right a while ago. This is called the Old Castillo Hotel. It says, this building erected 1835 to 1840 as an inn, it welcomed travelers and was a center for the town's social activities. Since its purchase in 1899 by the Sisters of Mercy, it has been used as a private school. It was placed on National Register of Historic Places in 1978 by the United States Department of the Interior. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So after Longfellow published that poem, the story of this was very popularized. And he wrote the poem to be centered around this live oak over here, like down here in St. Martinville, Louisiana, along the Bayou Teche, which is that river back there. If you can see it, we'll walk closer in a second. And that, like I said, that popularized the whole story. And whether, like some people believe it to actually happen down here, and some, you know, they don't. And so, but either way, the poem was written focused on this, at this spot, on this spot. And I'll show you around some more. Let's walk down here and I'll tell you a little bit more of how the story continues here. See what this is all about. Judge Emile Edward Simon, 1824 to 1914. A native of St. Martinville, Simon studied law at Harvard under the Honorable Joseph Story and Simon Greenleaf, earning his degree in 1846. As 14th Judicial District Judge from 1853 to 1865, Simon was to become the second of 4 generations of judges. While Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, the guy who wrote the poem, was writing the epic poem Evangeline and teaching at Harvard, Simon was a student there. Family tradition holds that Simon told Longfellow about the establishment of Acadian exiles here in 1765 and described for him the geography and local color of the Teche country. May this plaque forever honor our distinguished native son. Very interesting. Another beautiful live oak tree. On quite a nice day out today. It's a little warm. I'd say the real feel is about 91 degrees today. Not too shabby though. It's getting a little bit cooler lately. Of course, it'll probably get hot again before it gets cold, but we're not that lucky for it to start getting cooler in mid-September. All right, guys, and here, this is cool. Here's a statue of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, who lived from 1807 to 1822. It says, poet of the people. He was a man of great social consciousness. In works like Evangeline and Hiawatha and his collection of anti-slavery poems, Longfellow helped to preserve cultural memory. From remarks by Dr. Lane Longfellow in the unveiling in Evangeline Oak Park of the Longfellow bust sculpted from, I can't read today, of the Longfellow bust sculpted by Fred DeCourt Jr. for the St. Martinville Rotary Club. And that's him. Nice bust. And here's Bayou Teche. This is the river that runs, for the most part, about north and south through many Louisiana parishes. And right smack dab through St. Martinville, Louisiana, where we are today. There's another plaque that talks about the park. Evangeline Oak Park, dedicated 21 April 1990. Mayor Earl H. Mack Willis. So, continuing on with the story and the legend, I guess you could call it. Here's a much better view of the river, Bayou Teche. I'll just let you watch the river while I talk for a second. So, a man named Judge Felix Voorhees wrote Acadian Reminiscences, The True Story of Evangeline, and that was written in 1907. So quite, I'd say about 100, well, not 100, what am I saying? About 50 or 60 years after Longfellow wrote The Tale of Acadians. And so this version, written in 1907, the lovers actually reunite under the big oak tree. There's some church bells there. So in the original story, Evangeline is separated from her husband on her wedding day. And he's part of the egg. He has to get out of town. He's part of the, he's exiled basically. And in Voorhees' version, the lovers actually reunite right here under the oak tree along the Bayou Teche. And as a twist of fate, or a turn of events to say the least, in Felix's version, Gabriel, who's the man, who's the husband, if I didn't mention that before, he remembers. This is where I try not to laugh when I read this, because like, who doesn't remember something like this? But all of a sudden he remembers, apparently, that he's married to another woman already. And I can tell you from personal experience, I've been married, and you definitely don't forget that you're married, especially if you're married to the wrong person. It's a constant daily reminder. But all jokes aside, yeah, so I don't, the I can't help but laugh at that. But the validity of that, I don't know how, I guess if you romanticize it enough, it sounds like, oh, I guess that could happen to anybody. But it's kind of funny in a way. And so Evangeline, when she finds that out in the Voorhees version about her husband being already married to somebody else, she goes crazy and dies. Kind of Romeo and Juliet of the Deep South, if you will. Here's another plaque. To commemorate the 1996 twinning of Evangeline Oak Park and Grand Prix National Historic Site of Canada. Well, that's interesting, because it kind of ties in the Acadian aspect of it. And this is called, we're about to walk on, it's called the Bayou Teche Promenade. Dedicated on the 175th anniversary of the Act of Incorporation of St. Martinville, the 6th oldest city in the state of Louisiana. I didn't even know that. 30 January 1817 to 30 January 1992. Huh. 6th oldest. Now, romanticism and folklore aside, it really is a beautiful area down here. And not a whole lot has changed. You know, it's still very typical Cajun, you know, typical South Louisiana, along with the stereotypes and all that. You know, it does hold true when you look at all this stuff and you're around it. Look at that big cypress tree right there. Look at this monster. And there's not a whole lot of in-depth research and history really with this vlog today, you know, and this story in general, but you know, some vlogs will be like that. Won't be a whole lot of details and backstory and all that stuff. Sometimes it's just nice things to go take a look at and talk about and experience together, because this is actually my first time here. So in this kiosk right behind me right here, there's some info about the tree. And apparently, I think I said 500 years old earlier, but apparently according to this, it's about 400 years old. So about 100 years off, but still very old oak tree. And since I'm on my way out here, I'm going to actually, you know, show you guys more of the tree itself. Since we kind of got the story out of the way, I'm going to actually show you a little bit about the tree now. And yeah, so here's a tree. I know we kind of walked right by it earlier as I was telling the story, but I didn't want to mix things up too much for you guys. So I figured I'd kind of tell you all about the story and then we'd talk about the tree afterwards, or, you know, kind of briefly talk about the tree. There's not much to really tell about it except for the age. It's just, you know, it's about 400 years old. Like I said, according to that information that I just read in that little kiosk behind me. But it's a beautiful tree. You can see, looks like along the bottom of it, they had to kind of reinforce it with maybe some concrete or something. I'll show you here in a second. You can see it on this side. What looks like some concrete pilings, or, you know, you see that right there? Right in the middle there. You can kind of see it. And if you remember the St. John's Cathedral tree, that was held up by trusses and all that with the branches. It looks like they had to cut some of these branches off, cut them short a little bit to kind of fit. You can see that. They had to cut it a lot, kind of prune it, if you want to call it that. Albeit it's a beautiful tree though, in a beautiful area. And let's go read this last plaque before I go show you something else. So it says Evangeline oak, Longfellow's poem Evangeline immortalized the tragedy of the Acadian exile from Nova Scotia in 1755. This oak marks the legendary meeting place of Emmeline Labiche, and Louis Arsenault, the counterparts of Evangeline and Gabriel. So, as I promised before, we're going to make a pit stop on the way out, because it's right next to where I parked. And wanted to show you real quick St. Martin de Tours Catholic Church, which is right across the street from, you know, like I said, where I started this vlog at, with along the main street downtown area of St. Martinville. And this church right here is where my grandparents, my dad's parents, got married in 1949. And it's beautiful. And I don't know if I'll be able to see the inside, but it looks original. Like it's the same. Doesn't look like it's changed at all. I've been in there a few times. Let me see. I'll peek in and see if I can show you guys the inside real quick. I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time walking around or anything. I just wanted to show it to you since I was right here. But yeah, let's see if we can glance inside. No promises. Yeah, sorry, there's a mass going on right now, so we're not going to be able to go inside this one today. I'm sorry. Here's another look at kind of more across the street over there. This is all right in front of the church, Main Street and St. Martinville Highway, or Catahoula Highway, right here in St. Martinville. It's like almost going back in time, like going back in time, huh? Really nice. So that's about it for today's vlog, folks. Thought you might enjoy that short story that I would tell you about Evangeline and her poor husband, Gabriel, who forgot he was married to somebody else the whole time. I mean, this guy went through falling in love with this woman, planning a wedding maybe, having a wedding, and all that time he just forgot that he was married already. Oh, maybe times were different back then. I don't know. Like, what wife out there is gonna let her husband forget that he's married to her for that amount of time? I don't know. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. It's a good little romantic story and tragedy, and depending on which version you read, whether you read the Longfellow version or the Voorhees version. But you can look it up, you can read them both. I could have gone more into the poem and all that, but that would have just taken forever. So probably better if you read it on your own anyway. So yeah, St. Martinville's a pretty place. My grandmother's from here. She grew up here. And like I said, they were married in that church right there in 1949. And I thought that was pretty nice, and I'd show it to you guys. And so yeah, come take a look down here one day if you're in the area. See the live oak. You know, see where that story apparently took place. Like I said, there's some believers that believe it did take place there, and there's some that think it's just folklore. But either way, it's a beautiful thing to have around here, and it's a beautiful story and all that. So with that, I guess I'll go ahead and hang up here. Still gotta walk back to my truck. Signing off from Travel Without a Cause in St. Martinville, Louisiana, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, folks.